Thank you for joining a read-aloud story. The Whisper, written and illustrated by Pamela Zagarenski, is highlighted in January of the 2025 PRC-Saltillo Calendar. This story is read using the TAAP strategy to encourage conversation and interaction with the AAC learner. The words we encourage you to model this month are wow, look, what, will, that, and see. Other words you could model throughout the story are read, read more, turn page, turn the page, and the end. You will see these reminders throughout the video. You can use Word Finder on your AAC system to find these words in your vocabulary. Let's take a closer look at how to model these words and tap your way through the story. The first step to tap your way through is to pick an activity. We've already done that. We're reading the book, The Whisper. Next, you decide how often you will stop and tap. For this story, we suggest tapping after every page of the book. So, how do you tap? First, you talk about it. We suggest modeling the words wow and look. You can say, wow, look at that. Wow, look at her. Or whatever else grabs your AAC learner's attention. Next, you ask a question and wait for a response. We suggest modeling the words what and will. Some things you could say are, what will she create next? What's next? What's that? Then you acknowledge their response. This month, we suggest modeling the message that. You could say, that is cool. That would be amazing. That's true. Or whatever else feels natural. Finally, you propel the activity forward or predict. We suggest you model the word see. You could say, let's see, we'll see, let's see if. Enjoy simply listening to the story or tap your way through the story demonstrating words and locations for the AAC learner on their technology. Find other words that are interesting to the AAC learner and use these words in other activities. Join us as we learn about imagination and the worlds we can create. The Whisper, written and illustrated by Pamela Zagarenski. The Whisper. There once was a little girl who loved stories. She loved how the words and pictures took her to new and secret places that existed in a world all her own. The characters became her friends, and quite often she grew to love them. One afternoon, while waiting for school to be dismissed, the little girl noticed a mysterious book perched high up on a single shelf. "What's that book?" she asked her teacher. "That is a magical book of stories," replied her teacher. "It was a gift from my grandmother when I was just about your age. I have an idea. Would you like to borrow it for the night?" "Oh, yes, please, thank you," said the little girl, just as the clock struck 3. The teacher gave her the book, and with great anticipation, the little girl sprinted out the door and ran all the way home. Once home, the little girl greeted her dog and ate supper, and when she was just about to burst with excitement, she escaped to her room to read. The little girl opened the book and began turning through the pages one by one. Each picture was more beautiful and curious than the next. By the time she arrived at the very last page, she could scarcely see, for her eyes were filled with tears. Where were the words? Where were the stories? It's just not a book of stories without any words, she thought. As the little girl paged through the wordless book, she heard the wind blow and then a small whisper. Dear little girl, don't be disappointed. You can imagine the words. You can imagine the stories. Start with a few simple words and imagine from there. Remember, beginnings, middles, and ends of stories can always be changed and imagined differently. There are never any rules, rights, or wrongs in imagining. Imagining just is. The whisper sounded so knowing and wise to the little girl that she opened the book to the first page and began. At first, it felt difficult to imagine a story, so she looked harder at the picture. Are the bears best friends? She wondered. Maybe the blue bear is bringing honey as a gift. Bears love honey. Blue Bear's Visit. Now that's a good title, she thought. Then she began to tell herself a story. Blue Bear arrived on the first day of spring. He promised. The little girl studied the second picture. There's that little rabbit again, she thought. I wonder what that man is saying to the magnificent ox. I know. The secret. Mr. Ox, you must please promise not to tell anyone, but we need your help. Last week, the words began to come more and more easily to the little girl. Then the words grew into sentences, and the sentences became stories. The quest. Their 100-mile journey began in a sturdy wooden boat. Are we there yet? Asked Rabbit. In another 2 days and 1 night, replied Lion. Oh, that's a very long time. I forgot. Please remind me again. Where are we going? Asked Rabbit. Tiger's Prayer. All the creatures of the land near and far would be coming, and preparations were being made. The clown in the pointed hat would play music on his accordion. The wined horse would jump through hoops. Tea would be served exactly at noon, for Tiger had something important to say. A birthday party. As instructed, we arrived at exactly 3:33. 1 four-leaf clover, and a large pot of hot, steeping tea had been purposely placed near the entrance of the woods. An owl perched in a tree to our left asked, "Who, who?" And we promptly answered with the secret password. Our job was to bring the birthday cake, vanilla with vanilla cream frosting and black raspberry filling, with exactly 6 candles on top. Pan was very particular, and you could never quite know what to expect, but he insisted on throwing the surprise birthday party for the magic cloak. One night, a mysterious man in an elaborate cloak sailed into our harbor. Quite quickly, it became obvious to us that he was some kind of wizard or magician, for he could blow bubbles in the shapes of things. What was even more extraordinary was that the bubbles, once released, became real. Before long, enormous white whales filled our once calm harbor. Amazing as it was to see, we had to do something quickly to the golden key. That very morning, Al told us he would pick us up at midnight. We must be on time and prepared for anything. He held the small golden key tightly in his beak as we flew into the indigo night. We were ready to face word by word, hour after hour, the little girl imagined an entire story for each page. And when the moon was full and bright, she grew sleepy and drifted off into a dream world woven out of the threads of the pictures and the stories she had imagined. When she woke, the little girl felt grateful for the small knowing whisper. Already she missed her new friends, the ox, the owl, and the tiger. She yearned to open the book once again, but the sun was up over the horizon, and the birds were already fluttering about, chirping their morning songs. She did not want to be late for school, so she tidied herself, scooped up the book, and rushed out the door. Along the path, she met a fox holding a curiously round package. "Excuse me, little girl," said the fox. "I believe I have the words to your book. I saw them spill away, and because I'm a very clever kind of fox, I caught them in my net just before they drifted too far off." "Oh, thank you," replied the little girl, feeling a bit confused. "Now, please, before you leave, could I bother you for a small favor?" asked the fox. "Why, of course," answered the little girl. The fox thanked the little girl, and the little girl thanked the fox. She gathered the book and the bundle of words and hurried down the path toward school once again. "I am so sorry I am late," said the little girl, still catching her breath. "There was a whisper, and I imagined stories for every picture, and I overslept, and the words, I didn't know they had fallen away, but the clever fox caught them in his net, but I loved your book, and I almost forgot. Thank you. I have so many stories to tell you. I can't wait to hear, replied the teacher with a smile. The Fox and the Grapes. A famished fox saw some clusters of ripe black grapes hanging from a vine. He resorted to all his tricks to get them, but wearied himself in vain, for he could not reach them. At last he turned away, beguiling himself of his disappointment and saying, "The grapes are sour and not as ripe as I thought. No, 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 no." He resorted to all his tricks to get them, but this fox is of the very clever kind, so he imagined his story differently, and the grapes tasted ever so sweet. The end. The end.